In order to understand the need for the next generation firewall, we should know about the working and the limitations of the legacy network firewall. All right. So I have just taken the same topology that we have discussed in the previous video. It's like we have two set of networks. One is trusted internal network and the other one is untrusted external network. This can be an internet and this can be your corporate LAN network. All right. So firewall, as you know, it's in first line of a defense. So it's placed in the edge, and it is establishing a barrier. It is separating both the network. So whatever traffic between these two network would be going and coming through the firewall only, means bi-directional. All the incoming and the outgoing traffic between both the networks will be going and coming through the firewall only, and it will be maintaining a security policy, right? So in this video, again, I'm repeating, we are looking about the legacy network firewall only. Okay, so it would be having a simple security policy. If you refer the legacy network firewall, you'd be seeing a very simple security policy like this, because it would be working only based working on layer 3 and layer 4. So you'll be seeing a source IP information, destination IP information, as well as the destination port and the action. Okay, so I have very simple rules here, like I have some 3 rules. Means when user 1, right, who is having an IP address 1.1.1.1 want to connect to example.com, which has the IP address 2.2.2.2, right, the destination, using HTTP, right, the destination port 80, it is set to permit. Means when this user want to connect to example.com, this traffic would be permitted or allowed to pass to this destination, and he'll be getting the response from the server or the application. As same, I have another valid rule, like for user 2 who is having an IP 1.1.1.9, and it is for the application test.com, right, and again it is for the HTTP transaction, and this is also set to permit. So which means this time when user 2 also trying to connect to test.com in his browser, if his request is coming through the internet, it reaches the firewall, and the firewall will look at the security policy. So at that time we have a permit rule. So in that case, it will be allowed to pass through the destination and it will get the response. However, if this user, right, if means this is the only 2 permit rule we have, right? Apart from that, it's an deny. Okay, any means, which means that whichever source address to whatever destination IP for any service, it's set to deny, right? So just consider that if user 3 is trying to connect to either application means example.com or the test.com, when his request is coming to the firewall will look at the security policy. There is no means any permit rule for his IP address explicitly, right? So as it is not, as this IP is not matching with this 2 rule, this particular request is hitting to this third condition. Okay, so it is set to deny, right? So that's what it would be, get denied. As same when user 1 means when user 1 want to connect to test.com, right, when his request is coming from here to firewall, the source would be 1.1.1 and the destination would be 2.2.2.5, right? So in that case also firewall will look at the policy, but this time when it looks, it has only a valid security policy to permit when this user want to connect to this destination, which has an IP 2.2.2.5, sorry, 2.2.2.2, and it don't have any valid security policy to permit the transaction for the destination 2.2.2.5 for this user, right? So in that case, when user 1 want to connect or try to connect to this application, it would get denied. All right. As same when this user, right, who is having 1.1.1.9, if he is want to connect, he tried to connect to this destination who has the IP 2.2.2.2, it would get denied because he is allowed to connect only through 2.2.2.5. all right, so this is how a legacy network firewall works. Let's understand about the limitations. All right, so this is very simple firewall rule again. This time, instead of having explicit IP address, I made as like, so any source, okay, any source to this destination means nothing but the example.com for HTTP transaction, it is set to permit. Okay, so just consider that if this user is trying to connect to this application, His request would be coming here, and means as we have any as the source IP, it can be any source, right? And the destination would be this, and it is an HTTP transaction. It would be allowed to pass, and he will get the response. As same when this guy is also trying to connect to it, it is allowed to pass because we have a valid security policy, right? At the same time, when this user is trying to connect to this application, if his request is coming here, it will not allowed to pass this transaction because there is no valid rule to connect to the destination IP 2225. So in that case, it will get denied. All right. Same, if he is also want to connect to this, it will get denied because we don't have a policy. However, there is an hook here. Like, just consider that he's a malicious user. Okay, he's not a legitimate user, he's a malicious user. He may be a hacker, all right, an attacker. As I said, he's a malicious user. And if in case he want to connect to this application 2222, when his request is coming here, means a HTTP request in terms of a legacy network firewall, when his request is coming for port 80 to this destination, the firewall will look the security policy. It's mentioned as like source can be any, destination if it is this. For port 80, it's set to permit. So this will be permitted, right? Maybe like this. I'll just show you. Right. So when his request, this malicious user is trying to connect to this application, right? His request would be reaching the firewall. Firewall will look at the security policy. It's mentioned as like source any to this destination for port 80. It is permitted, right? So it will allow to pass through the application, and application will also send a response to it. Okay, as he is a malicious user or an attacker, hacker, he can easily compromise this server. All right, he can easily compromise this server, and based on that, okay, he can easily compromise this server, and with the script or whatever that he made on this server, right, he can also infect the other servers or the other devices in this network. By that way, he can compromise the entire network also, right? So this is the main limitations of using the legacy network firewall. Okay, because in the legacy network firewall, as I said, it will work only on layer 3 and layer 4. It will simply check on the source IP, destination IP, on the port number. That's it. If it is if you have a permit rule, then the traffic is permitted. It will not look as like, it will not understand whether, it will not check whether you are a malicious user or a legitimate user. All right. However, when it comes to next generation firewall, it not only work based on the the simple rule based on IP address and port number. In addition to that, you can add a multiple security policies, security parameters. Okay, you can add a multiple security parameters in addition to the IP and the source and destination IPs, port numbers. You can add multiple security parameters, and you can scan the entire content of the transaction. Like, just consider that if in case it is the same next generation firewall, if in case it is an next generation firewall, okay, earlier we saw that if it is a legacy firewall, how it get compromised, right? If you see, maybe I'll just clear it everything. Okay, as I said, if in case, if it is a next gen firewall, as in addition to this, you'll be having a lot of security parameters you can define. And this time, when this user is trying to connect, okay, when this user is trying to connect in the initial connection, right? If it basically in the initial connectivity, it would be a genuine request. So, or even sometime if you try to initiate with malicious request also. Okay, so in that content, in that situation, right, not only based on the IP and the destination, it has multiple security parameters. It will scan the entire request that's coming here, and if it identifies anything malicious, it will simply drop it. Okay, or let's put in this way, means when he is initiating a traffic, is just initiating with a legitimate request. Okay, once he connected to the server, maybe just a get request, right, a get HTTP request, like that. Okay, he initiated a legitimate request and the server is response. Then once he have the access, if he is trying to run some scripts or doing some malicious activity, right, each and every transactions would be inspected. Firewall would be inspecting each and every transactions, because it's a next generation in terms of next generation firewall. Okay, in terms of a next generation firewall, it will inspect each and every transaction. It not only, this is the main difference between the legacy network firewall and the next generation firewall. Because as I said earlier, in the legacy network firewall, it works only on layer 3 and layer 4, where it simply sees the source IP, destination IP, and the port number. And if that condition matches, it will simply execute the action. Means like if it's a permitted, it's set to permit, or it will deny based on the action set. But whereas in the next generation firewall, apart from this, you'll be having a multiple parameters, and the firewall will, even though this is set to allowed, it will keep on scanning the data that is passing through it between the source and destination, or even if it is a malicious user, it will keep on scanning the content that is passing through it. And at any time, if it detects the malicious activity or any malicious traffic that's passing through it, right, simply it will deny it. Okay, it will deny it. It depends on how we configure the security parameters. Okay, so this is how, or this is what the difference is between the legacy network firewall and the next generation firewall, or this limitations of the legacy network firewall brings the need for the next generation firewall. So in the upcoming videos, let's learn more in detail about the Palo Alto next generation firewall with the step-by-step lab sessions.